walking in a country road, and I've been chasing after my shadow.
Welcome back to the Camino Podcast, episode 99. I'm Dave Whitson.
Nobody asked me my name.
First off, let's just get this out of the way right now, the mandatory plug. I have a new book out. It's called The Camino Compendium. It's a collection of 32 essay-ish story-ish essays about the Camino Frances. It's available on Amazon right now and will be available from most other online stores soon enough. Please check it out. Okay, after a long lag, we are finally returning to the Camino del Norte series today. I'm not expecting that I will be able to complete it this summer, but I do have 3 episodes lined up, beginning with this one, so we'll be able to take a good, solid bite out of it. We pick up the Norte in Santander, one of Spain's major cities on the north coast, and right from the start, we have a decision to make. The official route is direct. That is its lone virtue. An unmarked variant loops instead around the coast. Those who walk it love it. One of those pilgrims is Nick, who joins me to rave about that alternative, and then carry us forward to the end of Cantabria and on to the first small town in Asturias, Colombres. After that, we'll take a close look at 2 spots along the way. First, Lucía González, a tour guide at El Capricho de Gaudi in Comillas, joins me to talk about this sunflower-covered highlight, a must-see on the Norte. After all, there aren't too many opportunities to see a Gaudi outside of Catalonia. Then, Laurie Plessala, the owner of La Joyuca del Paz, a hotel rural in Mogro, explains how an American originally from Texas made it to a small Cantabrian village on the Camino. It's 82 kilometers, at least, of the Camino del Norte through western Cantabria. Thanks for listening. Nick from Australia, thanks for talking with me about the Camino del Norte.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm always super excited to talk about it because it was just like such an amazing experience. Unforgettable. There's nothing like it.
And it was great to read about. You posted as you were walking on the Camino forum, so that's where I found you. And you were the person I definitely wanted to talk to for reasons I'll get into in a moment. But our focus for today is about, well, at least 82 kilometers of the Camino del Norte. It depends on how you approach it. Could be 100.
Depends how many times I get lost.
That is also an important variable to consider. We're picking it up in the city of Santander, and we are headed towards Colombres. So we are basically walking to the end of Cantabria in this section and just crossing the border into Asturias. We'll follow 3 book stages, but definitely a lot of people are going to want to do this in 4 days, especially if they take the approach that you and I took out of Santander. So that's something that needs to be acknowledged right away. And other people are going to do it in 5 or 6. So stages are always just a social construct used by publishers to make their books cleaner.
Sure, yeah.
You know, you got to organize it somehow. So we start off with the most complicated stage to try to organize from a book perspective, because there's so many different variables in play. Technically, the stage is Santander to Santiana del Mar, which is going to be a long stage, even if you pull every shortcut that there is. But if you do that, you're on pavement the entire day. And it's not very scenic, and it's not very interesting. What did you do leaving Santander?
Well, my strategy was I deliberately stayed to the north of the city. So I knew I wanted to walk the coast. I knew I wanted to skip the suburban sprawl. So I made sure to stay near the beach, sort of to the north, near the lighthouse. I took off early in the morning. The weather was perfect. I was so blessed with good weather that day. I made my way up towards the lighthouse. It was such an incredible walk. I saw no pilgrims. Even just before I reached the lighthouse, the scenery was amazing. Like, I'm not a golfing person, but that golf club looked so incredible. There was so many like photo opportunities in the first 15 minutes of that walk. It was really spectacular. Yeah.
Everyone who does it raves about it. You'll see it referenced as the Senda Litoral, the coastal route.
Mhm.
There are no way markings, right? So you are leaving the Camino del Norte behind. Depending on how you get there and how you get to the lighthouse, I've always basically just looped all the way around the coast. And so I go out past the peninsula, Magdalena Peninsula, go along the Sardinero Beach, which I think is for me one of the nicer parts of Santander. It's the nicest beach in the city. And then you climb up to the lighthouse and continue along the coast from there. And it is gorgeous. There's no one who has walked the coastal route afterwards said, yeah, that wasn't very interesting. I wish I would have followed the pavement on the official Norte. The complicating factor is that it adds a lot of kilometers. It's a lot longer, like maybe 18 kilometers longer if you do the full coastal arc all the way around in comparison with the more direct Norte.
I stayed at Mogro, so there was no way I was going to walk all that way in one day. I mean, I could, but I wouldn't enjoy it. And I mean, I tried to convince other people on the boat to Santander, hey, come with me on this coastal adventure. But everyone was just in the mindset, oh, just get it done,
Yep.
get to Santillana. But I'm just so glad that I took that route because it was so beautiful. And there's definitely other spots to break it up, like San Juan de Canal, de la
Yep.
Canal. That looked really beautiful. That would have been a hell of a place to stay, I reckon. There's just so many beautiful beaches.
Yeah, not any albergues, unfortunately, but yeah, there's some accommodations in San Juan de la Canal, in Liencres, so you can find a moderately affordable pension along the way, especially if you're walking outside of the peak of summer season. And also, it's a long day, but maybe manageable getting to Bo de Pielagos, which is 30-ish kilometers from Santander. It's a long day, but not necessarily an impossible day, because it's not the most strenuous walk of all time. It's a relatively flat walk along the coast with some gentle ups and downs. Did you happen to go into the Bambara Tavern?
No, I didn't. I'm
Okay.
curious. Tell me more.
I mean, Google it sometime. It's one of the strangest bars that I've been to in Spain. It feels like a British Imperial tavern. I mean, the whole thing is decorated with that kind of iconography. So it's right on the coast, and it's, for me, one of the more memorable, odd little stops along the way. But elsewhere, there are the more traditional sort of beachfront cafes that you can hit up. So it's not devoid of services, though there are some, longer stretches of just kind of empty coast.
Which is beautiful. It's like
Yeah.
really special to have that. You savor it.
A lot of people will criticize the Norte for being too much pavement. And a lot of times what that means is that people aren't tracking the variance very well.
Mm.
But there is a lot of pavement through this second half of Cantabria, which is all the more reason to grab the good coastal walking where you can. So yeah, 18 kilometers extra. Usually for me, adding 2, 3, 4 kilometers to do the more scenic path, no big deal. 18, that's a different story, but it's pretty great.
It's definitely a really, really memorable section. I couldn't imagine have not done that. It was so special. So it's thanks to the guidebook that I even knew about that. But straight away, as soon as I saw it in the guidebook, I targeted that as something, yeah, I'm going to give myself an extra day to do that. Just enjoy it. And some of my favorite tracks were along there where it's kind of like goat tracks. It's just like rough foliage and rocks and ocean. It's difficult to see where the actual path is and where the private property is. That was my conundrum. Like, I don't want to trespass,
Sure.
And it's really tricky. Like, I probably should have had tracks.
Oh, you did this without GPS.
Yes.
Well done.
I like just waymarks, but
Yeah.
since there aren't that many waymarks, you kind of just, you head in the direction of Santiago. So
Yeah. Just keep going west. And most of the time,
yeah,
you can just assume that you're going to be right on the coast. So you just keep looking until you find that walkway. It's not always true, but it's true a lot of the time in this section. So fortunately for you, you haven't done the official route between Santander and Bo de Pielagos. So I'll just mention that it's not exciting. It is paved the entire way. Technically, 99% of the way is paved. There's like this one tiny
Ooh.
little stretch where you get off the pavement. You're with a lot of car traffic at the beginning, not quite as much car traffic later. You pass through one town, Santa Cruz de Bezana, which used to have a well-liked albergue. It has closed. So you're not missing anything if you bypass the official route through this section. And then once you get there to Bo, you have now another decision to make because you can take the official route, which swings way to the south through Puente Arce and loops back up and around to Santiana del Mar, or you can take the train over from Bo to Mogro. It's like a 1 minute ride. It's an inconsequential distance. You're basically taking the train as a ferry. You're using it to get over the river. What did you do?
Yeah, I mean, I took the train. I didn't really have any problem with that because it is such a short distance.
Yeah.
It's just the tricky geography in that section. You got to do it somehow. But I have read on the forum, other people have said doing the huge loop was really scenic. So I don't know.
I mean, maybe if you have walked the official Norte to Bo, then continuing on that feels scenic bike comparison. There's a there's a nice enough little walk along the river, also paved. It's all paved. So it's kind of nice walking through the river, and the medieval bridge is nice enough. It's a lot of cut stone. Pleasant little village along there. So I wouldn't say it's a bad walk by any means. From my perspective, it's not really worth the extra kilometers. Like, I'm happy to pay the extra 18 kilometers for great coastal walking. Less thrilled to pay extra kilometers for just more pavement. So for me, it's been an easy choice. You know, back in the day, if you go back 10, 15 years, the advice that you got in the albergue in Santander was to just walk over the train bridge. I vividly remember looking at the sign. All the locals did it. No big deal. So I have walked across this train bridge multiple times over the years. It's not a narrow trestle where you have to worry about a train coming up on you while you're on the bridge. It's super wide. I took a group of high schoolers on it. It was just what everyone did. Now they're not quite so open-minded about it. So it's not something that we can recommend. And legally, it's probably not shrewd to recommend it in general. But it's funny just how things shift over time, that was accepted. And now the expectation is that you're going to get on the train. And the only annoying thing there is just the timing of it, that it's every 30 minutes or so, maybe a little bit less often on Sundays. So it's just something you have to factor into your day.
I mean, at the end of a long day, having to wait it all, that's going to suck. Like, it's always my luck. Every boat that's going, it's going just as I
Of course.
approach it. Yeah, that's how it goes.
Yeah, I have this powerful impulse to just rush when I'm coming up on a boat dock, right? Even if I have no idea what time the boat's going, for the same reason you just mentioned. My assumption is that boat is heading out and I'm going to miss it and I'm going to be stuck. It's a terrible feeling. So even after you take the train across, then there is still a choice because there are kind of two different versions of the Norte that have been waymarked forward from there. One loops kind of north through the town of Mogro and through Cudon, and then back kind of through the back door into Requejada. And there's an older route that basically just goes straight from Mogro to Mar and then onward. Do you have any recollection what you did?
It was a horrible windy day, and was that the one with the pipelines?
You did the Cudon approach.
Yeah, and the previous day I'd had beautiful sunny weather, and then this day it was the worst wind I've ever experienced while walking. It was like a day where the poncho sleeves are coming on and off. And no matter what you do, you're sweating, you're uncomfortable, and yeah, the pipeline, it just went on and on forever.
The one upside there is that that's your one chance to walk without pavement through this area. But yeah, I tend to favor the old approach. And when I say old approach, you can actually see where the old yellow arrows have been painted over with gray arrows to mesh with the gray posts. But with no super desirable option, what's the most direct? And so that gets me to Santiana del Mar a little bit faster. And
yeah, I mean, that day I didn't take many photos. There wasn't a ton to see, but I remember going into one bar and having that coffee, drying off a bit. That was so good.
makes all the difference on a tough weather day.
Yeah. I was alone all that day, like the pipelines. That was just me and my thoughts and the gravel. It felt like hours.
And it probably was hours, yeah.
Yeah, it probably was in a straight line with nothing to look at.
And then when the pipeline ended, you had some highway for a while. So yeah, it didn't immediately get much better.
As I got closer to Santillana, I did meet some pilgrims. So, talking to pilgrims, even in bad weather, that makes another huge difference. And then when I got to Santillana, the weather cleared. It was hot. It was sunny. I experienced at least 3 seasons in that day. It was a memorably tough day, but then when you get there at the end, you forget about it. It's such a beautiful town to arrive in. And I was just so exhausted because I'd been walking since Bilbao without a rest day. And so then when I reached Santillana, that was it. That's where I was going to have my rest day. So I was so happy to get there.
That's such a great spot for a rest day too, because it's beautiful, right? You definitely are happy to spend more time there, but it's also compact. So you're not going to burn out your legs on a rest day wandering all over the place. You can just sort of sit and take in the atmosphere.
I mean, on my rest day, I did walk up to the Altamira.
Oh, you did? You went to the Altamira Caves.
Yeah, Altamira Caves. And even just the walk up there, it's about, I think, 2.5 kilometers. It's quite a pretty walk.
Yeah.
And you see like a lot of cute houses, pasture land. And when I went, it was a Sunday. So it was a free day. You didn't have to buy a ticket.
Nice.
Which meant, there was a lot of families, a lot of children, but that was actually really nice. It made the museum feel like a really happy place. So that was a really good experience.
A lot of people are going to be put off when they read that you can't see the real thing, but there's a replica. Did it feel satisfying visiting the replica of the cave?
For me, it did feel satisfying enough. I mean, I love history. I love museums. Every stop on the Norte, I sort of went to a museum. So I was always going to go to that one.
Yeah.
I'm sure, I know there's some old heads on the forum that remember going to the real cave. So we're never going to have that same experience that they had.
Yeah.
But, when you read the displays and you hear why they've done it to protect it, it makes sense. You know, you got to protect what's important in this world. No, it was a good experience. If I got to walk that route again, I probably wouldn't do another rest day in Santillana because, in the days after, there's so many cool places to stay as well. Like, you're really spoiled for choice.
And it is tough that as beautiful as Santillana is, there's no beach. So you don't have that to enjoy on your day off. But if people haven't seen it before, it is just a pristine little medieval village, perfect cut rock buildings, cobblestone road. It's very atmospheric and also, understandably, quite touristed during the day. So it will be quite full of people. But as is true with a lot of places, it thins out in the evening.
Oh, yeah, definitely. In the evening, it was a totally different sort of place. But the atmosphere is just, it's so good.
Yeah.
And, there's nothing better than just sitting down in Santillana, having gelato or sorbet, watching the world go past a bit. Yeah. And those cloisters, oh, they're beautiful.
Yeah. In the 12th century church, some very, very impressive cloisters there that are worth visiting.
And it is a real pilgrim place. You see a lot of pilgrims, so it's got that real happy vibe. You're watching them come in exhausted, like I was. So it does have a real pilgrim spirit to it, even though it is so touristed.
Yeah. All right. So that's our first stage completed, which again, for a lot of people, that's at least 2 days walking. And then the next one's shorter. So Santillana del Mar to Comillas, about 22 kilometers. Another day with a lot of pavement. What stands out in your memory from this shorter stage?
Well, for me, actually, it wasn't a shorter stage because I chose to go to San Vicente that day. So that was actually my longest stage of the Camino at 36 kilometers.
Wow, yeah. But you were coming off a rest day, so you were all fired up.
Yeah, I was pumped. I was ready for it. I don't know. It was just something about San Vicente. Something was calling me there more than Comillas.
Yeah.
Even though, as I walk through there, the architecture is just mind-blowing. I will have to go back there one day to see what I've missed.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
That was another day where the weather was perfect. That was also the big blackout day in Spain.
Oh, you were there for that. That's right.
Yeah.
For people who missed that, talk about where were you? What happened?
Well, that day, I mean, as you know, or some of you know, Spain, Portugal, and some parts of France had like huge blackouts that lasted, I think in some places it was days, you know.
Yeah.
Transport was affected all over the place in cities. For me, I was just in a bar and the power went off. And everyone's like freaking out about not getting more coffee. And I was sort of like buying a few bottled cold drinks while they were still cold. But you know, because you're on Camino, it doesn't really affect you that much. If you know you're staying somewhere, it's all good. But just the scenery, the architecture on that stretch was amazing. I can't even name all of those churches and monuments. I've never seen anything like them.
So let's work our way back from Santillana and move forward. It's a lot of small villages to kick off the day. There's places like Cabo Redondo, which has a very popular Donativo albergue. I've always liked San Martin de Sigüenza, which is a small village that you kind of loop into. You loop into the right and then come back out to the left, and you cross this little gurgling stream, and there's this big hulking church just sitting in a grass field, pretty much always locked, but very, very evocative, lovely little place. Then you come upon the big town in the middle of the walk, which is Cobreses, which always sticks out in my memory because you're used to churches being kind of colorless. You're used to stone or you're used to white. And you come into Cobreses and the church is kind of a vibrant red. And then right next door, the abbey is sky blue. So it's an explosion of color that one is not always prepared for.
Yeah, that's the town I was in when the blackout happened.
Okay.
Yeah, so thank you for identifying that in my mind. So many stages. It can be tricky to remember everywhere you've been. But yeah, that was an amazing town. Even just there would be a cool place to stay because it's so atmospheric, you know.
There's one very large albergue there. It has like 100 beds. They used to have an albergue in the Abbey as well. It's been closed now for a number of years, but you know, who knows, maybe it'll come back. The route splits immediately after Cobreses. There aren't a lot of variants to talk about in this stage, but you have the option of going down very briefly to the beach and then looping back in, or taking an old kind of cobblestone road inland from Cobreses. What did you do?
I think I took the old road. I remember there was a sharp right going down towards the beach, and I remember I was with some ladies and we just kept going forward straight ahead.
Yeah.
So what would you have done? Would you have taken the coastal or?
There's not a great advantage to either. You know, they're about the same distance, and if you've missed the beach and you want to go and dip your toes in the sand for a minute, that's about what you get. You pass through a very small chunk of beach and then you're turning inland right away. The other approach is your only chance to get kind of a sustained little bit of off-road. Admittedly, it's trading pavement for cobblestones in places, but it is a chance to get in the shade and be on something other than pavement. So I don't have a strong feeling about that choice. No harm done either way.
For sure.
And then you continue through the villages. And it's some intriguing little places where I've never been able to discover too much about the underlying history, but there's some stuff that must have happened because you've got La Iglesia or Ruiloba, and then you pass by an old monastery, Pando, that has not decided to embrace the Camino. You know, there's no albergue in that monastery. The doors are closed. And then for me, like one of the strangest places of all is Concha. So, you know, it immediately triggers the Camino signals. It's talking about a shell, right? Concha. It's just one perfect little medieval street, kind of near the monastery. You just turn onto the street, all of a sudden there are all of these perfect little houses, and then you're just back off into the countryside. It's so strange how that one little street is there.
Yeah, I mean, that whole stage was pretty interesting, actually. It had like a decent amount of variety. I remember that walking was very safe. It was like separate pedestrian lanes for most of it. So that was a bonus.
Yeah, pavement, but pretty easy walking, you know? Well, let's get to Comillas because you might have walked through it, but man, I love Comillas. So Comillas is a gorgeous little town. It has beaches, but the Camino takes you into the center of town. You never actually really see the beaches unless you make an effort to go out to them. There's a ton of impressive architecture. You loop down past the church. There's a plaza just off route to the left that's filled with restaurants. And then you emerge on a road that's passing between kind of a grassy hill with super impressive architecture lining both sides. What do you recall from your time passing through Comillas?
Oh, it was beautiful. I mean, I've just got to go back there to see it. You know, the Gaudi architecture in the park. I stopped there to, to eat, to drink, to refuel, and it was just such a beautiful place. And everyone I've spoken to that's visited those buildings, it's unforgettable. I really love the approach to Camillas where you see the blue ocean just appear before you. It's a really beautiful stretch. I can understand why it is a stage end for most people. It looks really special.
It's lovely. But, there are days where you know that you've got more kilometers in you and you're not ready to stop, regardless of where you are, regardless of how appealing. You're just getting pulled on further by forces beyond your control.
Yeah, and I mean, after I left Camillas on that crazy pavement that has the warnings because it's so trippable, you know what I mean, the uneven
Yeah.
pavement, and it just goes for ages and ages. And that point, I had sunscreen like sweating into my eyes, so I was like half blind. And because of the blackout, and I didn't have much cash on me, I couldn't buy much food or drink because like they weren't accepting
Yeah.
card payments, and I was low on cash. So it was a bit of a struggle that afternoon.
And I wonder if you even could have visited Gaudi given the blackout, right? I suspect that they closed everything down, right?
Oh, possibly, yeah.
See, not your fault.
So maybe it was meant to be that I skipped all of that really cool stuff.
Yeah.
But the scenery as you leave Camillas, that's really cool too. I mean, I remember crossing over multiple rivers, like over bridges. There was like this amazing estuary that was just sparkling and full of wildlife.
We'll jump into that because your day continued, but technically we're moving into the third and final stage here. So it was 22 kilometers to Comillas. There is an albergue in Comillas. It's private, a little pricey, a little small. So definitely fills up. It's something that you've got to prepare for. Unfortunately, the municipal albergue, which was located in the Old Town Jail, has closed.
Oh,
So yeah, there's a bit of atmosphere that's been lost. So just the one private albergue. So schedule ahead if you do want to stay in Comillas. Otherwise, you'll be limited to more expensive options.
did you stay in the jail?
I stayed in the jail back in the day. Yeah, I had an entire group of high schoolers that stayed in the jail with me. So those were the days. But the new one's very nice. So, you pay more for the comfort. So this last stage, 29 kilometers, Comillas to Colombres. And as you say, coming out of Comillas, you're on the road for a little bit. You do pass through that lovely estuary as you cross over the river. And then you get to this point. There are these stretches on the Norte that have basically been a tug of war between different groups, I guess, who want different routes to be the official route. So for a long time after Comillas, the waymarked approach went inland and up into the hills. And then about 5 years ago, suddenly it shifted. New waymarks were installed, the old ones were painted over, and now they were saying, no, 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 go along the coast, go past Playa de Oyambre, all the way looping around the coast, don't do the old way. And then the last time I was there, they had obliterated the waymarks going past the coast and were trying to push people back into the center. There's no rhyme or reason to it, but it's just an odd thing to note that depending on when you're there, one or the other might be favored in the moment. So what approach did you take?
Yeah, it seemed like quite a miserable approach. So it wasn't the coastal. Yeah, I don't think I can recommend it because the road shoulders weren't very big. It was quite a busy road at times. It dragged on and on and on. So I think if I had the chance again, I would definitely try the coastal just to see if it was any better.
Part of that might just be that you were tipping into the 30-kilometer range, and a lot of things stopped feeling quite as exciting at that point in the day. But, the coast is also road bound for a chunk. There is an option to leave the road. Not everyone knows this, kind of a shortcut. In Playa de Meron, you can cross down onto the beach and just walk the beach all the way around to where it sort of curves back in at the river to reach the bridge to cross into San Vicente de la Barquera. So that's my preferred approach, is to take the coastal option and then cut over to the beach and just walk on the beach. and then loop back around to San Vicente. It's a little bit better. Still a lot of pavement, but if all else fails, take the coast.
Yeah, I mean, the view I got of San Vicente as I was coming in, it was so special. It was like, late in the afternoon, the tide was fully up, the water, it was so spectacularly blue. It's actually my favorite town of the whole Camino.
Nice. What is it about San Vicente that captured your imagination?
I think, yeah, the struggle in getting there for me probably added to it. It was a hot day. I think that day was in the 30s as well.
Yeah.
So, you need a lot of water too, because there's not a ton of places to stop on that stretch, really. The way you approach over that bridge, it was just so spectacular, and there's boats in the harbor. It's got a real charm to it. I mean, it's got a Castillo, which I haven't visited, but I would love to. I don't know. There's just something about that place that made it my favorite. It's just such a gorgeous little port.
It's two levels. So you come in at the low level, and there's a bunch of services, restaurants, supermarkets kind of clustered down at the base. And then there's a sharp climb up to the second level, which is where the castle's located, the church, and also the albergue. So you've got the low town and the high town, and the Camino is going to pass through the high town regardless. But yeah, it's a different kind of layout for a town than you've had in some of the other spots along the Camino.
For sure, it has a totally different feel to, I think, any other town I'd been in. It just felt really unique. And because like a lot of pilgrims weren't stopping there, again, you sort of feel like you're the only one in the world.
It's a great spot. And, there aren't a ton of really big towns in this stretch. So it's a natural, especially for people who want to kind of stay in between the official stages or to break it up with some shorter walks. Like, this is a really great spot to have kind of a half day from Comillas and then also be able to maybe linger a little bit longer in Comillas and then still have plenty of time in San Vicente. It's a great option.
That's what I'll do next time.
It's always important to be planning the next time.
Oh, yeah. I was about 1 week off the plane and I started planning the next one.
It's the best way to recover afterwards. Well, you've got a good climb up through San Vicente and then kind of an unremarkable walk, but fortunately there is a new shortcut possible in this next section. So you loop around over the hill, you cross a bridge over an expressway, you get to the village of La Cebosa, and then, I don't know if you saw reference of this, there is a forest track that you can turning right when you get to Acebosa, or you can continue to follow the Norte to the left. Do you have any recollection of what you did at that point?
Not really, to be honest.
It doesn't surprise me. I mean, it's not going to blow your socks off either way. I just want people to be aware of the forest track because it gets you off the pavement. It gets you into the trees. It's shorter. It saves you kilometers. It takes you direct to Serdio, even bypasses a solid little uphill. So it's just like win, win, win across the board.
I do remember it wasn't like a terrible day of walking though, that one. It was quite pleasant, yeah.
It's all back road and then on a dirt track, especially after Serdio. So you've got some time away from traffic, away from cars, away from the coast too, for that matter. So you're cutting inland for a bit. I always like Serdio, just a small town. There's one bar, and it's one of those bars that has definitely embraced pilgrims. They have so much food available. They're open early. There's tons of seating. It's just a really perfect spot for a break mid-walk.
Yeah, I saw tons of pilgrims at that bar. So it was a really welcome spot. There's not a lot on that stage, so definitely have a little rest and refuel there, I reckon.
It's an important spot. It's a shame that their municipal albergue closed a few years ago and remains closed because that was a really valuable stop. And one of the things people will notice as they walk through this section, you'll see a little bit of it after Santander, but especially from San Vicente, that there are double waymarks now, that you are seeing waymarks for the Camino del Norte, and then you're also seeing the Red Cross waymark for the Camino Lebaniego, which will split off from the Norte not too far after Serdio.
Yeah, I know some people were getting a bit confused by that. Yeah, but it's cool that there's more Caminos in that area. I mean, I love that area, so I might just have to go back and explore some of them one day.
It's great. It's 2 to 3 days to take the Le Baniego up to the old monastery, which is said to have the largest piece of the True Cross surviving. It's a nice jaunt onto the edge of the Picos de Europa. So if you want bonus mountains and a little bit of religious significance and a beautiful town in Potes, it's a worthwhile detour for sure. And then you can just take the bus back down to Unquera and carry onward. But on this day, you're just continuing on. You come down to the river, you come to the town of Pesues, and then you've got a dirt track that kind of parallels the railroad that takes you into Unquera, which is a market town that, for whatever reason, has never managed to get an albergue, despite really seeming like it should have one.
Yeah, I mean, the location it's in, it would make a lot of sense, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it's a busy little town, few different supermarkets, few hotels, nice spot on a river. So it's a very pleasant little town that otherwise you don't have any great options to stay in as a pilgrim. The good news is it's immediately next door to Colombres. It's your entrance to Asturias, you cross the river and immediately have to go up a steep hill. And it's just a pedestrian track going up the hill. You come into this town and you have arrived at the end of this stage, though I imagine you were continuing on that day. Was Colombres not your final destination?
No, after the previous monster day, this was a short day for me. So that sort of made up for it. Yeah.
Okay, so you did stop here.
Yeah, it was a nice short one.
Nice. That's fantastic. Yeah, what a great thing. Did you stay in the Donativo albergue or where did you spend the
No, I
night?
didn't. No. I had a little room somewhere. I can't even remember. I stayed in so many places, I can barely remember. But
Yeah,
I do favor private rooms myself personally.
it's fair.
Yeah, it's just a personal preference. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, at the end of the day, it helps you get a good night's sleep, get ready for the next day. Colombres has a pretty new Donativo albergue. It has a kind of youth hostel in an old Indianos building, bright blue, right on the Camino, quite large. I've never stayed there. It often seems to be booked up with large youth groups in the summer, so not great appeal to me to mix in with the boisterous crowd there. But then, plenty of other small hotels and casa rurales spread throughout the small town.
Yeah, that youth hostel, it was absolutely full as I passed it. Like the teenagers are kind of like blocking the streets
Yeah.
in that area. There were so many of them. And in the evening, I could definitely hear them. So it was a very rowdy town at night, that one.
The most memorable thing to me about Colombres is that it has a Mexican restaurant. And that's right on the walk into town. I just don't expect to see a Mexican restaurant in a small Spanish town. And everyone who eats there reviews it positively, says it does taste pretty authentic. So something to look forward to in that town.
Yeah, I mean, that was a nice little town. There was some really nice bars and restaurants to eat at. And yeah, I remember I had a little place and I was just sort of sitting on a balcony and there was like a church choir practicing in a building down below. So I was just sort of listening to their performance kind of in a voyeuristic way almost, just as the sun was going down. It actually was a really special place, the way it panned out.
That's perfect. Well, it's been awesome to talk with you about these three stages. We have reached Colombres. We've reached the end of this section. And, it was great to be able to read your daily write-ups and have your stories from the road. So thanks for doing that while you were walking along the Norte.
I mean, I've really appreciated all the forum members that have posted before me. Like, I really wanted to do it so that I was giving something back in that regard. So many threads have inspired me and influenced what I chose to do. So, if we can help people take the coastal alternatives and
Yes.
maybe have an even better experience than they otherwise might, then so much the better.
Lucia, thank you for speaking with me. How long have you been a tour guide at El Capricho de Gaudi?
I've been working here for a little longer than a year. I started last April, I think.
What first drew you to the role? What do you enjoy about it?
The thing is that I never expected to be working here and doing the job that I'm doing right now because I actually didn't study anything regarding this kind of work. I studied translation at the university. I needed a change in my life. I thought that I wasn't happy enough. And one of my friends from university came to my house, paid me a visit. We came to El Capricho, and then I tried my luck, and I started working in here, and I've been loving it so far.
I can understand that because every time I visit Comillas, I don't want to leave. You know, on the Camino del Norte, it stands out as one of the most beautiful towns. And a town that is so beautiful today, that has so many beautiful historic buildings, it must have an interesting history. So, what was it that made Comillas such an important place historically for it to get so many beautiful buildings?
So this place, this little town, as we call it, started being very humble. And we always have to talk about the same man. We have to talk about Antonio López y López. He was an Indiano. We always call Indianos everyone from Spain who traveled overseas during the 19th century. He specifically went to Cuba, made a ton of money. He started actually, it's kind of funny, he started working as an errand boy for the people. When he had enough money, he started kind of working around his companies and everything. And he got almost 200 companies at its name. So he was very well married at the same time. And he had enough money and enough resources to be able to help the King of Spain, Alfonso XII, back in time, to face the wars in Cuba. So that's why he got the title of First Marquis of Comillas.
Okay.
Then he moved back to Spain, came back, wanted to see a change in Comillas. And of course, first things first, he made a little palace for himself that would be Sobrellanos Palace and the little chapel, mausoleum, church, as you want to call it, that we have next to it. From in there, he invited the king, people from society that was very well considered, and everyone started to come to Comillas, and we got to this point.
Everyone, including the great architect Gaudi, whose buildings are mostly located in Catalonia.
Mhm.
Pilgrims on the Camino Frances encounter one in Astorga. And then, of course, there's Comillas. So what brought Gaudi to Comillas? Why did he decide to design a building there?
The thing is that I don't know if he decided to do that. But yeah, it has a ton of things to do with Antonio López y López, once
Okay.
again, the first Marquis, because Sobrellanos Palace and the church were done in around 1880, more or less. Gaudi was still a student back then. He was at the university finishing up his degree. And Martorell, the architect that designed Sobrellanos Palace and the church, was one of his teachers. Gaudi was very well known in Catalonia, in Barcelona, because of the furniture that he designed, because it was very comfortable. And he got put in charge of designing some of the pieces that were inside that church. So that's how Gaudi came from Barcelona to Comillas.
Wow. And then what took shape from there as he moved from designing furniture in one building to designing the Capricho itself? How did that take shape?
The first thing that I have to tell you is that sadly, we don't have any kind of document that proves that Gaudi actually was in Comillas at any point in his life. The theory is that he was directing the whole construction and designing of the building through letters to his fellow companion, Cristóbal Cascante, one of his colleagues from the university. But this house, El Capricho, was designed for another Indiano, Máximo Díaz de Quijano, that was at the same time the cousin of the first Marquis of Comillas and the lawyer of the first Marquis of Comillas. So this is a much smaller place, a bit more humble, very different from the other buildings that we normally see in Comillas. And that's how Gaudi got this little house, because Antonio, the Marquis, didn't allow Maximo, his cousin, to use the same architect as he did. And the next best thing that he knew was Gaudi.
Gaudi as the fallback, as the second choice.
Yeah,
That's an unusual
exactly.
role to think about. Yeah. What's the creative vision behind El Capricho? What makes it noteworthy?
The thing is that with Gaudi, he was breaking the rules from the early beginnings of his career because he was the one that kind of started with the Spanish modernism, and that kind of designs were breaking a bit the rules because normally all of the buildings were supposed to have an aesthetic, something, just some rules to be followed. With Spanish modernism, Gaudi changed that and he started designing houses or homes that were shaped into their owners. For example, this house is perfectly shaped for the needs of Maximo and his likings at the same time. So I think that's what strikes out the most, apart from the almost 7,000 sunflowers on the facade. That would be the main thing to visiting here.
What's up with all those sunflowers?
The thing is that in all of Gaudi's designs, you're going to find references to nature because when he was a little child, he was very ill and he was in bed a ton of the time. So looking through the window was one of the few things that he could do. And at the same time, he was very religious. So he thought that nature was a divine creation from God himself. So we're going to find that in all of his designs, but in Cantabria, the climate doesn't allow us to grow sunflowers. So it's kind of a joke, but for real, this house works like a sunflower. So it's just a little metaphor, something that everyone can see, but not everyone can understand.
One of the things that I've read about Gaudi and his approach to this building and other buildings is you talked about Spanish modernism as a style, but it's interesting that he is pulling together a lot of different historical artistic styles that have flourished in Spain over different eras. Can you talk about that aspect of his approach?
Yeah. In his earlier career, Gaudi incorporated a mix of different architectural styles, Gothic, Mudéjar, which would be Islamic Spanish, kind of what we have in the south, and then Oriental, because he was kind of exploring everything and his own style. And he wanted to he used it as a way to experiment with the structure of decoration and symbolism. So that's why, for example, at El Capricho, you're going to find a tower that's shaped like a Persian minaret. It's a bit crazy in here because we don't have anything of that sort in Comillas or the other village surrounding Comillas. But yeah, that just helped him develop the technical and artistic foundation that later evolved into his own style that we can see in Barcelona. Because many people come to Comillas from Barcelona saying that this has nothing to do with what he finally did at Sagrada Familia or the houses in Barcelona or the designs, and they are pretty much right.
One of the amazing things to me about Comillas is not just that you have this work of architecture by Gaudi, but you have the other buildings that you mentioned, the chapel, the palace. On the other side, you have the seminary building that stands tall over the field. You have the big grassy field in between. It's just a beautiful space. Is it possible for people to visit those other buildings as well? I think we just immediately focus on Gaudi, and understandably so, but are those other sites possible to visit as a tourist?
Yeah, you can go to all of those. You can visit the seminar, you can visit the Sobrellanos Palace, then you can visit the chapel. You can always go. The only thing to be accounted for would be that on Mondays, they are closed. Okay? So just giving a little advice, if you want to go on a Monday, maybe that's not your better choice. But yeah, everyone can make a tour around the whole Comillas. You can visit everything. You always have guided tours inside those buildings, but I think that they only have those in Spanish.
Whereas El Capricho, someone might get to travel around with you or other English language tour
Yeah.
guides. So what specifically should pilgrims know about visiting El Capricho?
First thing, if they are coming by bike, riding a bike, they can always park their bikes behind our box office. We have a safe space for the belongings. We don't have anywhere for you to keep your bags safe. We're working on that, but right now we don't have that. And yeah, at El Capricho, you have both Spanish guided tours every half an hour from 10:30 till 7 p.m. And then you have two different timetables for English guided tours that would be at 12:30 p.m. and then 4:30 p.m. They take around 45 minutes, more or less. And if you want to do by yourself, we also have what we call self-guided tour with a pamphlet with some information, a QR code that you can always scan, and that would give you access to the audio guide. And we have that in Spanish, German, Italian, French, and English. Of course, I was missing English. And we're working on translating those into Dutch, Russian, and Portuguese right now for next year, hopefully.
One last question. What's the space, what's the room, what's the site in El Capricho that you always look forward to taking people to? The space that you enjoy the most?
I would have to say that I have two different ones, and
Okay.
very different ones. One is the top side of the garden, because there you can take very beautiful pictures. That's the only spot at El Capricho that would grant you a photo with the whole building behind yourself. And then would be the main bedroom. I always love to explain the main bedroom to people because it has a lot of secrets and a lot of details hidden that you can show people, and they are always surprised to find those.
The secrets of the bedroom of El Capricho. I won't ask you about those. We will keep those secret so that people have something to look forward to when they arrive.
And of course, I forgot to mention this. All of the music that's hidden at El Capricho. I'll just leave it in there. If anyone wants to investigate a bit further, you'll find information online. And if you want to come and pay us a visit, we're always pleased to have you.
The hidden music of El Capricho.
Yeah.
Another teaser. So yeah, people have every incentive to go and check it out. Well, this is a delightful way to start my day. It's afternoon in Comillas, but it is early morning here in Portland, and it just brightens my day to think about such a beautiful town. So thank you very much for talking with me about it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you, Laurie. Thank you for talking with me about your current experience in Spain and also the many years on the Camino leading up to this point. I read from your background that you first walked the Camino in 1997 and then have returned countless times. I couldn't even count up all of the times that you've been back, especially on the Camino Frances over the succeeding years. What hooked you in that first experience to make this a fixture in your life moving forward?
I wish I could quantify it, but I think the most direct thing I can tell you is that for me, the first time and every time since, it became the place where I go to remember who I am. So I feel more authentically myself, more connected to everything around me, including nature, obviously. But at the time that I did my first Camino, I was changing jobs. I had a super stressful job as a very, I think what most people would describe as a high-powered Washington, D.C. lawyer. And it's easy to get lost. You just lose yourself. You work all the time. You don't have hobbies. And the higher you go up the ladder, the more deferential people treat you. And I'm just a little girl from Port Arthur, Texas, and nobody needs to be deferential to me, right? So the emotion and the feeling that it evoked in me was, this is a place where I have peace and I remember who I am. And it kept me grounded.
It's so interesting that in order to remember who you are, you have to separate yourself from home, from job, maybe from family, from friends, from all of the things that we would often use to define ourselves and define who we are. And it was only by giving yourself thousands of miles of distance from those things that you were able to reestablish that.
Yes, and just to state the obvious, in 1997, like I tried to find a payphone to make a call to tell somebody I was alive, right? Like,
Yeah.
talk about disconnected at a whole nother level than we experience now.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that stood out to me in reading your background again is how, on one hand, yeah, I can see how that one consistent role for the Camino runs through it, helping you remember who you are. But going through the discrete experiences in your timeline, it seemed like the Camino has played other different roles for you at different points in your life. At certain points, sort of an escape, for a time, a business, and now again, a business, but different kinds of business, a grief processing outlet. In a way, it's now your life itself is being on the Camino. So that's interesting to me as well, that the Camino can function in these very discrete ways that line up with distinct points in our lives.
I agree with you. And you are correct that I would say my motivation to walk each time was different. And yet my conclusion after doing it for 27, 28 years now is, oh, how the Camino laughs when you think you know why you went. It laughs and laughs and laughs. So there were times when I thought I was really going to just relax, like I didn't have an agenda.
Mm-hmm.
And then crazy stuff bubbled up that was very transformative. And then there were other times, I mean, I think of one time in particular when I went because I said, this has been something I've been carrying, like a heavy burden that I've been carrying my whole life because of something that had happened in my past. And I've got to let it go. I've just got to let it go. And I don't know where to bring it other than the Camino. And I started walking. By day 3 or 4, like I'm thinking about it, right? Like I'm thinking about it. I'm really working, trying to like, I got to get rid of you. I got to get rid of you. And nothing happened, like nothing. And it was beautiful weather, which doesn't always happen, obviously. And I walked and I finally on day 4 said, like, forget it, man. I'm never going to be able to do this. I'm just going to go enjoy my walk. And I was probably about 10 days out of Santiago when I made that decision. I probably started in Leon that year. That's my guess. And so I walk a few days and then I kind of forgot about it. It was like, I guess this isn't going to work. I walked into Santiago and as does probably everybody listening to your podcast, the funny Spanish way where, when you leave one town, it's the name of the town with the red line through it. You enter the next town. And so I was walking and I saw the sign that said Santiago de Compostela. I was entering Santiago de Compostela. And I can really hardly tell you the story without really just, unfortunately, crying again, even though that was over 20 years ago, because when I saw the sign and I crossed into Santiago, I basically fell to the ground, sobbing. And the sobbing went on an embarrassingly long time, like hours. And I got up and I kept walking and it was gone. The burden I'd been carrying was released like a balloon. And I was shocked. Part of me said, you mean it was that easy? All I had to do was like go over like a balloon. And I've been like carrying this through life and slogging on the Camino trying to work it. But, I have to believe, as certainly an older person now, that was a long time ago, that everything I had done up until that moment, including going to the Camino, had prepared me to release it. It just surprised me, right? Like, I think like this is hopeless. It's never going to work. And then I literally just walked into Santiago and it was gone. So I think that, sometimes we all have these very profound experiences on the Camino, and sometimes you don't think much is happening, but it turns out there's a lot happening.
I mean, that's the thing about grief. Sometimes I think that grief is like a mathematical problem that you have to deliberately work at it. And you were doing that. You were consciously trying to process, unpack, confront. And then somehow by pushing it to the background and letting it whir outside of your conscious mind, that actually did the trick. And it was the walking and contemplation and maybe just emptiness of your mind that opened up that possibility.
Yeah, it definitely went from being a conscious process to an unconscious process.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, I think it's St. Augustine, right, who gets quoted as saying it is solved by walking.
Yeah.
And like, put it on my tombstone. Because I think most of the big things in my life, one way or another, I have reached some kind of resolution through walking. And in my case, my choice is to walk the Camino because I feel like it's a special place with special energy and special people and the things that happen to you along the way that for me aren't going to probably happen in Central Park. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I
Yeah.
didn't try walking in Central Park for, 3 weeks.
One of the unique things about you is that you have these very distinct ways of engaging with the Camino. So you have these individual experiences, these ways that you work through issues in your life on the Camino. And then you also led luxury groups on the Camino. What was that like, sort of switching roles and switching your mindset from that individual experience to the very different group one? Or was it really very different in the end?
So different. My now ex-husband, who does those tours still, he was the primary person doing the tours. He's the one who introduced me to the Camino in 1995 when he started talking to me about it. So it was definitely a part of his life. I went once or twice a year with a tour group. And I'm serious when I tell you, I feel like it damaged my relationship with the Camino. And here's why. All my other walks had been for me. And when you're of service and in service to someone, and I don't just mean like I do it now at a hotel, where you get 2 kisses on the cheek and I give you some orange juice and we'll rub your feet if you like. This is a day in, day out. I'm walking, and my job is to support other people on their journey. It has nothing to do with me. My own process, my own feelings or whatever don't have a place because I'm there working. And my job is to help other people have a tremendous experience. So the truth is, listen, I met some fabulous people. It's not that I didn't enjoy myself, but it was a completely different experience and not one that I would seek out again. It wasn't bad, right? I don't want to say that at all. Quite the opposite. But my role was, it was a role that I had to play to be there for other people and not focus on what was going on within me.
It's a job.
Yeah. Yeah. And a good job, by the
Yeah.
way. Like, good work if you can get it.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about another job and how you ended up in this position. So talk me through the process that led you to where you are today in Mogro, Spain.
Okay. Are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm here.
So I was married for 22 years and that didn't work out. And I was at a place in my life where I really had to start over. And that happened to coincide with COVID as well. So because I was married to a Spaniard, I spent so much time in Spain. Let's call it roughly a month out of the year in different parts, whether I was on the Camino or I was, at our place there. And I really loved Spain, big part of my life for over 20 years. And so between COVID and the separation, I was outside of Spain for, I think it was about 3.5, 4 years. And I really missed it. And I was almost surprised how much I missed it. And I missed the Camino because I also didn't walk during COVID. And I'd been trying to figure out, how do I go back? Like, I don't know how to go back. It's a place I was always at with my husband. It was always the Camino. Like, I don't know how to go back. And what's it going to mean for me? And out of the blue, a friend of mine from Australia sent me a note and said, I've decided I'm coming to Spain for 2 months this summer Europe time, not summer Australia time.
Mm-hmm.
And she knows I've been walking the Camino forever. And she said, and I'd like to walk part of the Camino. Do you have any interest? And I said, oh my God, yes, Melissa, like that's how I go back. And I said, but I don't want to walk the Frances. To me, that is plowed ground. And I've been dying to walk the Norte. And if you're willing to walk the Norte, 1,000%, I'll not only go with you, I'm really good at planning. and I will plan the whole thing and book everything and tell you where we're staying, and I'll do all the work. And she laughs because she's like, it was like 30 hours later. I had a detailed itinerary for you what day we're leaving and where we're staying each night and all of this stuff. So I came back to Spain. And one of the things that really surprised me, I didn't know how I was going to feel when I landed in Madrid, honestly. Like, what's it going to feel like to come back to Spain alone and in a completely new circumstance? Nobody was more surprised than me that, obviously you're landing in the morning, it's an overnight flight. And I'm looking out of the window and we're approaching Madrid. And I just started sobbing because I felt like I'd come home. And I had no idea that's how I was going to feel, right? So we go to the Norte, we start walking, and I've been all over Spain. I'd been to almost every province in Spain, but I'd never been to Cantabria and I'd never been to Asturias. And we walked out of the Basque Country and into Cantabria, where I live now. Spoiler alert. And I felt like it was my place on the planet, that this is where I was supposed to be. And I've lived all over the world. I lived in Hong Kong, I lived in Switzerland, I lived in DC, I lived in LA, I've lived lots of places. But something about Cantabria, I thought it was spectacularly beautiful. And the energy here, it felt like it was the place I was supposed to be. So fast forward, we finish walking. I go back. At that point, I was actually living in Florida for a couple of years. And my life wasn't really working there. So I got back in like July, I guess, of 2023. And in October, I went to see a flamenco show with a troupe from Spain. And I lived outside Tampa at the Spanish Center in Tampa. And I said, these are my people. When I first started walking the Frances, I had thought a couple of years into it, it would be so nice to have a place on the Camino and be able to look after pilgrims, have a little casa rural. And, look, life made other plans and I had my career and I did other stuff. And I remembered that when I'm thinking, how do I go back? What am I going to do? And I thought, okay, so now we're in October and I say, okay, I'm going to start looking for a rural hotel. And I had a whole list of criteria. Like for me, must be near the coast, at least 10 rooms, no more than 15 rooms. Has to be on the Camino because I understand from a business perspective, it's hard to run a hotel with people who only stay one night. I'm just telling you, that's hard to make money, right? Like you need people who come on vacation too. So I needed a mix because I wanted the pilgrims, but it's a business. It wasn't like, this is how I'll just lose money. So I thought, okay, well, this is a project and I'll start looking. So I started looking on idealista.com, which is the common real estate site in Spain. And I figured this would take years. And it took 3 weeks. And I found the place in 3 weeks. And I'm literally like screaming at my computer, no, I'm not ready. No, what? This can't be. And it was perfect in every way on paper. And what were the odds of that? I mean, I really had quite a list. So I got a friend in Spain to help me. My Spanish was not awesome. It was passable, but certainly not awesome. And he made a call to the real estate company, blah, blah, blah. And the answer that came back from the owners was basically, if you want to buy it, you better get here in a couple of weeks because we're ready to sell.
Wow.
Okay. So I got on a plane. Luckily it was November, so the flights are cheap. And I popped over to Spain and the friend drove me from Madrid up to Mogro to see the hotel. And the structure was great. It needed some love and some money on the inside. I think it was very well loved, but that wasn't obvious in everything that was inside the hotel. So then they told me I basically had like a week to decide. So I went home and I found a tax lawyer and tried to understand what does this really mean and how will I be able to do this? And I have to say, sometimes I feel in my life that I'm a salmon swimming upstream all the damn time. And I'm trying to do really hard stuff and I have to overcome obstacle after obstacle. And that process, everything fell into place. It was like one thing after another, just falling into place. And basically I made an offer and they accepted it. And I knew that I got to get on it. And if I'm going to make pilgrim season and high season for Spaniards traveling, I have 2 months to put my stuff on a boat and get my dog on a plane and get over there and fix up the hotel to open for Holy Week in 2024. And that's what I did.
Wow.
And so in 5 weeks, I bought 11 televisions and 11 new sinks and a lot of furniture and fixed up the hotel. And I opened the doors on the Thursday that began Holy Week. And I look at it as probably really the most profound, unexpected gift that the Camino's ever given me. Like, I just was going because I missed Spain. And then what? Now I own a hotel and I live in Mogro. Like, I can't even quite, I mean, I can tell you factually what happened, but I still can't really explain it.
Yeah. What's the name of your place?
Yeah, so it's got a very funny name. In Spanish, the name is La Joyuca del Paz. And that means the little jewel of the Paz River, which is why I didn't change the name, even though it's impossible to pronounce. So in Spanish, you probably know a lot of times the diminutive of any word, they put ita on the end, right? Señorita or a mesita. But in Cantabria, they use uca.
Oh.
So joya in Spanish is a jewel. And in the rest of Spain, it would be la joyita, the little jewel. But in Cantabria, it's la joyuca.
Okay.
And then it's del Paz because it's P-A-S, not P-A-Z, like peace. So it's the little jewel of the Paz River, which is the river that runs near the hotel. But I have a lot of Americans who've come in and said they know just enough Spanish and they go, does this mean joy and peace? And I'm like, let's go with that. The Joyuca is joy. And I'm like, I'm good with this. We will call it the Hotel of Joy and Peace. It's all right.
Even if that's not a literal translation, it's figuratively true. Yeah.
Yes, why not? So that's how it happened.
Mogro strikes me as an interesting place to land because, it's on the Camino del Norte, but there are multiple variants that bypass Mogro along the way. So there's a lot of pilgrims who just are never going to be there. And even those who do stop there, taking the train over from Boo, might be out of it before they realize that they even passed through it. So there's not a ton of people who overnight there if they're not staying at your place or another Casa Rural in the area. What was it about Mogro that kind of captured your imagination?
To be honest, there's nothing about Mogro that can't happen. Mogro happened to be the piece of land where that hotel was sitting.
Yeah.
And it's the standard 1 day walk, right? So it's on stage, right? You don't have to make your stages funny. You're absolutely right. Half the people never come by the hotel. Some of them go through Santa Cruz de Bizana and never come by. But I'll tell you a key thing about it, which again, it wasn't really Mogro. There's a restaurant that is basically a football field away across a parking lot from my hotel. And you got to feed pilgrims.
Yeah.
They got to eat. And I don't want to be the one feeding people 7 nights a week because it's hard enough for me to get up and deal with breakfast. So that was a huge thing for me. And that the hotel itself is a 5-minute drive from the beach. So I get to live down at the beach. My dog loves living at the beach. And I get to wake up and look at the beautiful sea every morning and then get in my car and, drive 5 minutes to work. So Mogro itself is no great, showpiece of Spain. It's full of lovely people. It's a village. They've been very welcoming of me, very kind to me, but there's no big draw, if you will, about the town itself. It's just another town in Spain. It's not famous for anything other than maybe now having an American when it never had one before.
Yeah. Many pilgrims daydream when they're walking and when they get home about running an albergue. And you were focused on a hotel rural. Why that? Why that approach as opposed to like an albergue? Was that always clear in your mind that you wanted a hotel?
It was. And gosh, I feel like this sounds like such a vapid answer. I will tell you one of the great joys in my life, whether it's a house I buy or, I took a flower arranging class, I nurture myself by making things beautiful. I love beauty, but that can be the landscape. But seriously, during COVID, like I took online flower arranging classes and I would just surprise people at their door with flowers and my mask and drop flowers off and run away. So there's a process in me that to be surrounded by beauty does something for me. And most albergues, there's some that are absolutely beautiful, and I've been in them, but a lot of them are very functional, right?
Mhm.
Like you got some bunk beds or you got some rooms and you got to get people in and you got to get them out, and you're not going to like put your art in there. Well, like I put my paintings on a boat. And I brought them because I wanted to be in a place. I wanted to make it beautiful. I wanted to make it beautiful, not just for me, but for other people, because it's a nice respite, I think, sometimes when you're walking and you stay in a lot of places where there's not a lot of beauty inside where you're staying. And you walk in my hotel and you're like, geez, what's this place? Right.
Yeah.
And so I put all my love and my whole heart into it to genuinely make it beautiful because I like the way being surrounded by beauty makes me feel. And I want every room to be beautiful. And my staff, would shoot me given half the chance because I get upset if the lampshade isn't turned right and you see the seam on the lampshade. I'm that person. So that's why I needed a hotel.
Yeah. I think as well about the experience of hosting, and that being an hospitalero in an albergue where you have this constant direct involvement with pilgrims, it has to be incredibly rewarding and utterly exhausting, to the point that if you last 5 years as an hospitalero in an albergue, it's almost a record. Like the
Yes.
rate of attrition is super high. And so I'm wondering if maybe being a host in a hotel rural, it gives you proximity and some of that sense of connection without maybe quite the same risk of burnout. Is that accurate? I know you're early yet, so there's still time to figure this out, but does that ring true to you?
Yes. I think you hit the nail on the head. And I hadn't really looked at it that way. So I would not have bought a hotel that wasn't on the Camino. That
Hmm.
was absolutely, I want to be on the Camino and I want to see pilgrims. And if you need to sit and cry for 2 hours, like I'm your girl. And Bo, my dog, does a lot of therapy, right? Because, I mean,
Yeah.
people, you can leave your dog for weeks at a time. And then you have this, he's a mix, but he looks mostly lab like. This black lab come and just lay on your feet or get you to throw the ball for him. And it does a lot for the
Yeah.
pilgrims. He works hard. And loves and just giving love all the time. So yes, the pilgrims are, I just wouldn't be here without them. I consider it one of the great privileges of my life to be able to welcome someone through the door on what is almost always a really important journey in their life and make them as comfortable as possible. I will tell you, my staff thought I was crazy. I do a free load of laundry for every pilgrim because I've got to wash them in the dryer. And the way their little faces light up
It's
when
huge.
I tell them I'm going to do their clothes. And I haven't tried it yet, but I honestly think some of them would rather have me do laundry than have me give them 50 euros, right? Because it's so hard. It's just such a practical problem when you're walking.
Yeah.
And it's not a big deal for me to do that. So it takes a lot. It takes a lot of my personal energy because I'm the one on my staff who is a pilgrim and I want to engage with the pilgrims. But on a night, if I have 12 pilgrims, like, dude, I'm doing a lot of laundry and I'm pouring a lot of beer and Bo's running all over the yard and, we're working
Yeah.
compared to if I have 12 Spaniards on vacation who have a car,
Right.
who are going to a restaurant and wave at me when they walk in and aren't really, engaged with me sometimes as much as the pilgrims are. But I engage the pilgrims because of what it does for me. I love hearing about their journey. I love knowing why they walk. I love watching like mother daughters walking and sons and fathers and them telling me about the things that happened. It enhances my life. But yes, I give a lot of energy and I get a lot of energy, but it's a lot of energy to run a place on, because anything can happen.
You've been at it now for a little over a year.
Yeah, that's it.
In what ways has it already met or exceeded some of the dreams, the aspirations that you had for the experience?
Okay, with the understanding that I was a lawyer for almost 20 years, so I was a very different type of person and type of problem for a long time. And then I did some stuff in between. But it has renewed my faith in humanity. I can tell you emphatically, 95% of the people who walk through my door, if they're not fabulous people, they're at least really good, right?
Yeah.
Depends how much I talk to them. But I have met so many kind, warm, loving people, not just pilgrims, the Spaniards who come. And the way they've accepted me, they think it's like crazy, but everybody tells me I'm very valiente, that I'm very brave. And I say yes, and a little loquita too. I have a crazy too. It took both things to do it. So when God, you listen to the news or you just hear all the bad stuff happening in the world, sometimes you think like, my God, what's going to happen to us? And then you set up shop in a little town in Mogro in Spain, and you find out how wonderful people are most of the time. The 5% can be pretty bad. I'm not going to lie about that. There's not a lot in the middle sometimes, but 95%, that's huge.
Yeah.
From all over the world. It's not just Spaniards. It's not just obviously Americans. It's not just the French, whatever. Like 95% of the people who come through my door, I really am so glad they're there. So that's better than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, that's awesome. Are there any particular setbacks, challenges, issues that maybe you never anticipated, maybe that blindsided you as you've gone through this process? I know you said that this is something in your life that stands out for how easy it was, for how smoothly everything worked. But are there particular challenges involved with this kind of life change and business that you're running?
Yeah, all that easy part came to a screeching halt when I hit Spain. There were days when it felt like bait and switch. Yeah, so listen, I knew a lot about Spain and I knew a lot of Spaniards, but I did not understand at all the level of bureaucracy and the structure that makes it very, very, very difficult to stay in business. It's kind of that bad. As an American, right, I've owned other businesses. There's nothing unusual about not making money your first year you're in business, right? Like that's just, you made an investment and it pays off over time and you accept that. And I accepted that. And so for the first year, there were, most months I couldn't pay my own salary. And that's fine. It's not fine, but I knew that was part of the gig.
Yep.
What I didn't know is that whether you actually pay yourself or not is irrelevant to whether you pay tax.
Oh, no.
Yeah, seriously. So on June 30th, I have to pay 24% tax on money I didn't earn.
Wow.
And I found that shocking. The accounting firm does my paycheck and don't get me wrong, eventually I will pay myself back, right? Like I have all of those paychecks and when I'm able to, I cut myself a check, so to speak, for my work in the hotel. But you could have given me 10 years and it would never have occurred to me to ask anyone. So if I'm unable to pay myself, will I have to pay tax on that? That's not a question I can form in my mind. Honestly.
Yeah.
And I thought they just had to be wrong because that's insane. But that's the way it is. So I would say there's nothing disappointing about the people or the act of having this beautiful little hotel and welcoming people in and talking with them. That's all probably better than I had hoped. But the speed and frequency with which things break in a 200-year-old building and Spanish bureaucracy have had days when it brought me to my knees. That's the truth. Sorry you asked.
It's an important thing that, all of the pilgrims who are dreaming also recognize the financial implications of this kind of experience, that it's not something that is going to be easy. It's a complicated initiative.
Yeah, so for example, right, like the other businesses I had that were LLCs, like the tiny little business, I would say in more or less 25 minutes, you can start an LLC and have a bank account, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you literally fill out the paperwork on the internet, You open a bank account on the internet and you ask the IRS for a taxpayer identification number and you get it in 10 seconds. And in 25 minutes, you have a business. I managed to do it here in 5 weeks and no one had ever seen anything like it because it usually takes, I'm not kidding, it usually takes a year. I don't mean it usually takes 5 months.
Yeah.
And I still don't know how it happened. That was the part where everything was falling into place before I opened the doors. And I think on some level, it was a lot of incredibly nice Spaniards who thought, this woman's out of her mind, but I'm going to help her. It's like, she's just so crazy. We're just going to make it happen for her, because now that I've been here a year and a half almost, I don't have any idea how I did that. As long as it takes me to get stuff done now, I have no idea how that happened. But the process of actually forming the equivalent of an LLC in the US is very protracted and very difficult and not cheap. So for anyone who is thinking about it, that's just something to consider. If you have experience in the US, forget about it, because it doesn't tell you anything about what it's going to be like here.
Well, let's turn back to a cheerier note to wrap things up.
Did I sound like Debbie Downer?
No, I think
I'm
that's
not sorry. I don't have a moment when I'm sorry.
people don't talk about that stuff, and it's important, like better to go into this kind of pursuit with eyes wide open. And also maybe important to appreciate that your hosts in many of these places are often grappling with some particular challenges. So if the albergue or hostal is, not in peak condition, there may well be good reasons for it. Or if your host seems stressed, like there's probably good reasons for it.
Look for a place with a dog.
Yeah.
The dog will make up for all that.
Always helps. So you showed up in Cantabria. It captured your imagination. It became your home. So as our resident expert on Cantabria, what should pilgrims walking along the Norte be on the lookout for? What are, whether it's places, sites, cultural practices, particular dishes, I don't care. What stands out to you as things that pilgrims should be focused on as they walk through Cantabria?
Oh, I'm so happy you asked. Okay, so the physical beauty is extraordinary. And sometimes that means you really need to look carefully at the different variants that are available to you. So I'm going to give you the most obvious example to me. If you follow what most of the guidebooks tell you to do for the traditional Camino between Santander and Mogro, you're not going to be very impressed.
You're speaking my language right now. Yeah.
It's not a very pleasant walk, frankly. It's the usual industrial stuff and it's a lot of pavement. But there is a Camino Litoral, which means the coastal route, and it's not marked with arrows. And I don't really have any idea who officially recognizes anything. Nobody's in charge of the Camino. Yeah. But the walk between Santander and Mogro, if you choose the coastal route, which is much longer, I'm going to say 26 kilometers probably, it is some of the most beautiful coastal scenery you will find on the Norte. It is spectacular. So that's something I would encourage everybody. If I get a chance to talk to a pilgrim, when they book, do it online. I'm like, if you take the coastal route and you get tired, I'll come get you. It's that good that at least if it's a sunshiny day and it's not driving rain, it's totally worth it. So I would say you just have to know some days in order. If you really want to experience some incredible physical beauty, some days you got to walk further.
Yep.
So look out for that. When you're in Cantabria, we have 2 breakfast things that are delicious. One are called corvatos and the other are sobaos. They're sweets that you have at breakfast. You can always find them in a bar. You might find them in some restaurants or albergues that are serving breakfast or hotels. And for the sobaos, they're made with a lot of butter as well as sugar.
Great.
And it tastes much better if you take the plastic off, because they always come wrapped in plastic, and you put it on a plate and you stick it in the microwave for 20 seconds and you get the butter to melt. And then you dunk it in your coffee. So where food is concerned, that we have, of course, amazingly fresh fish. The local fish, at least where I am, is called machote. And it's kind of a meaty white fish that you're not going to find anywhere else. Yeah, and then just know when you're in Cantabria and you see something with uca, it means ita. And don't be confused by that.
Yeah.
And it's also, I will have to say, if it were the United States, in most places I've lived, the cows would not have the best view. People would have bought that land
Yeah.
and condos would have gone up. And there are some really happy cows and horses. And some of the best land in Cantabria is still farmland with cows just on a cliff looking at the sea. It's one of the things that I think it makes it feel so primitive in a good way, right? Where everything hasn't been eaten up, like in Barcelona or some of the places in the south, full of Airbnbs and the tourists. It's really a very quiet, simple place. And, you know, when I hear myself say that, Dave, it makes me wonder if this same thing that brought me back over and over, that remembering who I am by having some quiet and some peace, maybe that's why I feel so happy here, because it's a very simple place. It's a very simple way to live. And it's easier for me to just be me.
And we come full circle there. So that's a great place to wrap up. One little thing to conclude with: pilgrims, travelers just sort of default these days, I think, to hopping on booking.com. Is that the best way to book as a proprietor of a hotel? Are there better ways? What's your preference if someone's looking to reserve a room with you?
It's usually better for the person booking and the hotel if you book directly. I understand why that's more work. And especially most small hotels like mine, nobody's going to speak English, you know, or at least not speak it well. So I get it. But what I do, and other hotels usually do some variation of this. For example, if you book directly with me, breakfast is included in the price.
Okay.
So if you book on booking.com, I have to pay booking 15%, which means I have to charge you for breakfast. So the rate is higher. Now, what I know, having been a pilgrim, is once you get the Genius discount, if you have a place that honors the Genius discount, it certainly brings the price down. But rarely is it going to be cheaper for you to book on Booking, at least if you want to have my fabulous breakfast. And I'm not kidding, fabulous, because I want you full of protein and ready to walk. Rarely is it going to be cheaper. Certainly more convenient to be able to print out like your list on booking.com, right? Like I totally get it. But the truth is, the answer to your question is it's probably cheaper for you, and it's definitely better for me if you book directly with the hotel.
That's just a good thing for every pilgrim to hear.
Yeah, that's just the reality.
Thank you, Laurie. Congratulations on the big life change, and I hope you can at least make it through a month without something breaking.
Man, me too. Me too. Thank you, Dave. It's been so fun to talk to you.
This is the point in each episode when I review the different variants available in this chunk of the Norte. Nick and I obviously already spent a good bit of time on the coastal variant from Santander. It can be pretty confusing, though, so let's reset this. Walking on the official Norte direct from Santander to Bo de Pilagos, you're looking at just under 14 kilometers. By contrast, that coastal variant is around 32 kilometers, and that is a big difference. Without question, most everyone is going to add a day to their walk through this section if they take the coastal approach. From Bo to Santiana, there are also a lot of different options. The official route is the longest, looping south through Arce. The old official route, the one that Nick described, takes the train over the bridge from Bo to Mogro, and then loops northward through Cudon along the pipeline track. My recommendation is to take an even older version of the Norte, proceeding straight from Mogro to Mar and onward to Santiana from there. Without an obvious winner on the scenic front, might as well maximize efficiency, especially if you've already taken the coastal detour. In the second stage, there's only one small decision to make: whether to take the coastal approach from Cobreses, earning one small beach stop, or to take the inland option that earns you a short respite from pavement. The third stage brings two big choices. First, after Comillas, you can either follow the coastal road past the Playa de Oyambre, including the direct approach along the beach from Meron that I described, Or you can turn inland. That option has been reestablished as the official waymarked approach in recent years. But as I said, there's been a tug of war going on between those options, so don't be surprised if it swings back around. After that, there is the shortcut from La Cebosa after San Vicente de la Barquera that leads directly to Serdio. It's unpaved, has some tree cover, and it's shorter. That one is a no-brainer. I will reiterate my starting point for this series on the Norte. The quality of your experience is going to be influenced in part by your ability to make informed choices on the available variants. In this section, the difference in pavement, especially, is quite substantial. The official route will have you on asphalt more than 90% of the time. The right variants, though, can get that down to 60, 65%. Still a lot, for sure, but that is a big difference. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention one last variant, a track that would bypass our final destination, Colombres. From Unquera, it's possible to follow the GR as it swings wide to the north, passing through a lovely wooded area en route to the Cueva del Pindal, one of the caves in the area containing prehistoric cave art. And unlike Santillana, you can visit the real thing here. It's an amazing location. It's set on a coastal hill. The cave mouth opens up to the sea. It's stunning. Appointments are required to get inside, but for me, it was an experience I'll never forget. Just like the coastal walk from Santander, it sometimes takes a little more walking, a little more sweat, but the rewards are considerable. That's all for this episode. Thanks again to Nick. You can find him, aka Pellegrin Nicolai, in the Camino forum. Thanks as well to Lucía González. You can plan your visit to El Capricho at elcaprichodegaudi.com. And finally, thanks to Laurie Plessala for sharing her story. Book your stay with Laurie by going to lajoyucadelpaz.com. All episodes of the Camino Podcast can be found on Spotify, Apple, SoundCloud, and YouTube. You can reach me at CaminoPodcast@gmail.com and through the Camino Podcast Facebook page. And you can support the pod on Patreon at patreon.com/Dave Whitson. Back again next week.
Baby, you will never see me again.